We are going to grab Kenneth, he, him, wants to talk a little bit about Christian mythicism and so on and so forth. So, hey, Kenneth, you were on the Atheist Experience with SR and Armin. What's up?
Hey, how y'all doing? Greens from Richmond, Virginia. I was just calling because I haven't listened in a while, but, you know, a lot of Christians who call themselves Christian will come on and say, I can prove God, and he gives some ridiculous reason. And I think that's a mistake. I think to understand whatever God is not going to be used through the traditional methods, especially like trying to prove in the Bible. I think it's more of a mystical experience. And I got to be honest with you, there's nothing you can prove scientifically. It's just a way of knowing.
Wait, what way of knowing? First of all, what is God, and what is the way that you know it?
Yeah, help us with that.
So let's say it's not. Say whatever this God thing is, you're saying that the scientific method fails at letting us know anything about it. Okay, fine. We will put the scientific method away. Tell us what it is, and what is your method of knowing it, as you describe it.
Well, it's got to be careful, because at the moment I try to describe God or say God, it becomes a form of idolatry. But you
cannot describe. So you believe in something that when we want to know what it is, you can't describe it. So what's the point of talking about it at all? Yeah.
Well, I think what you're talking about is your experience that you have. And
experience of what?
I would say that I have experience of what I guess what some people call enlightenment, or God forbid, say a feeling. And then I would maybe share this experience with someone else, that this is what I experienced. Now, I can't prove scientifically that was God. It could have been a chemical going off in my head. I don't know. But it did cause change.
We're not talking about scientifically. Okay, we're not even. So let's take. Okay, so let's take one step at a time. Okay, we're not in the position right now to find a way to prove or to even figure out even whether this thing exists or not. We are first trying to figure, before we even get to that step, we first have to know what are we talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So before we talk about whether or not we could show that it exists or not, or even if we want to show that it exists or not. But how can we start having a conversation about whether or not we can know this thing exists if I don't know what you're talking about, right? So when you're talking about having some feelings or experiences, this thing that you're labeling as God, does it refer to the feelings itself, or are you feeling something that you're calling that thing God, right? So you're saying, I have some feelings, I have some experiences. So the feeling, are you feeling something that is God, or are you describing the feelings themselves? Can you tell me that?
Okay, you're right. That's a good question. I would say the source of the feelings is coming from what I consider God, but the feelings themselves are not God.
Okay, and you cannot describe to us what this God thing is.
Yeah.
No, I cannot. I cannot describe to you, at least at this development in my stage of Christian mysticism. Yeah. I cannot.
If I told you, Kenneth, if I told you that I have a pet at my house, it's just off camera here, you can't see it. It's further away than the lemons and the cutting board are at the moment for me. But I can't describe this pet in any way, shape, or form. I have no characteristics for this pet. What do you think the likelihood is that pet is real?
Well, that's a very intriguing question, because you're dealing with something that's corporal. I'm sorry, my wife is trying to call me, and I'm on my cell phone. Sorry, you hear that? I think you're dealing with something that's corporal and relatable, right? That so I can, like this is a cat, right? So I would. It's a little bit. It's a tricky question. I can't give you an answer.
Let me try it this way. Is there anything else that you can think of that if I substituted out God or pet, and I then said back to you what you've said to us, which is, yeah, like I don't have any criteria for it. I can't give you any characterization whatsoever. Is there anything else that you could put in that slot other than God in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, you could, right? I mean, it could be an alien from outer space, right? I mean, it could be anything, right? But I guess I choose to accept that that's God. But I understand what your argument is, right?
Go ahead, Armin. Yeah.
So,
right.
Okay, so you have certain feelings, okay, of something, right, that you cannot describe to us.
Right.
So we have the feelings of something, and that thing you cannot describe to us.
Back to what is it I cannot describe to you? I'm gonna just want to make sure we understand each other.
Okay.
What do you think I
can you
describe?
answer two questions? No, I want you to answer two questions. Can you describe the feelings? One, and also can you explain whatever that thing that you're feeling is, why have you decided to refer to it as God? Can you tell me these two questions? Yeah. Yeah,
well, I will attempt to. I may not be able to do it, but I will attempt. Okay, I can say I've had an experience where I was in a certain state of mind. And then I've had this impression, I hate this term, but some people call it mind speak. And it was completely nothing I was thinking about at the time. I was in a very, whatever emotional state or something. But that impression that came into my mind struck me as being quote unquote truth, because it pivoted the way I was thinking into a more positive way. Now, could that have been sent by some, guy, a scientist behind some door beaming stuff? I have no idea. But whatever it was, it changed my mind to where I was thinking differently. And I think in a more positive way. I call the source of that is, for lack of a better word, God.
Okay. Why did you decide? So let me know if I'm describing this correctly. You had a reframe of thinking about things that seemed to be closer to the truth to you, and it seemed to be more positive to you. Okay, that was the feelings is that a good description of the feelings that you were having? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
so
wasn't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And it wasn't something I was actively trying to do, at least consciously. Okay. I wasn't conscious and yeah.
So it seemed like it was happening without you trying to make it so. It seemed like it had a life of its own, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Or at least I was.
And why did you decide? Okay, fine. Okay, and is it possible that because it seemed like it was doing something that you weren't controlling, that's the reason why you are referring to it as God? Because it seemed to be, if you were not doing it, then something else must have been doing it. Is that why you decided to refer to it as God?
Yeah, I think that's a I think that's a pretty accurate way of describing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that's a good reason to come to that conclusion, Kenneth?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you think that's a good reason to come to that conclusion?
I don't know if it's a good reason, but it seemed to work at the time. Like I said before, you can make an argument that I was in such an emotional state, some chemical went off in my brain and caused me to think a certain way. And I can't argue against that.
But, and it worked, you're saying.
Yeah, it worked. And it did make me alter the way I approach things.
You know what, sir, I'm not against calling it God, but the thing is, Kenneth, usually when people say God, you could label it whatever. Something happened, all right? And you're free to label things the way you like, right? You could call it God, you could call it dog, you could call it whatever you want, right? The thing is that when people usually say God, they're talking about a conscious creator and or manager of the universe, right? So we're not we're not denying your experience, right? We don't want to invalidate what you obviously had a certain experience, right? And because you had that experience, something must have caused it, right? And and that something is either not you, or even if it was you, it wasn't a conscious part of you, right? It could have been a different part of your, because our mind is not just our conscious parts of our minds, right? Our minds does certain things that is independent from what we think we have complete control over, right? So it's not bizarre for your mind. Like if you notice your mind doing certain things without you willing it to do so, that doesn't necessarily mean that something externally entered your mind. That could have still been an internal processes of your mind, but not the conscious part of your mind. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay.
I can't. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
You go ahead, Tim.
Oh, yeah. I cannot prove you wrong in that. You know, I cannot. You may be absolutely correct. It may have been, like I said, something that comes out of my subconscious. I was in such an emotional state. Something happens, and I choose the thing that happened is God. And perhaps that's what's been happening throughout time. Who knows, right?
I wonder, Kenneth, do you think your confidence in this, saying that this is God, right? That gave you that experience, where that experience started from. Do you think your confidence in that is related to the effectiveness of it in the past? Like, because it's worked, man, I really, really believe it.
I think so, yeah, because be quite honest with you, I've been raised a Christian, and I was in a very fundamentalist, whatever type church at one time, and it really wasn't working for me. It still doesn't. But the thing is, when I would consciously try to do that path or what was prescribed to me through that particular faith, nothing real. I didn't get the same experience like I did when this happened to me, right? Sure. I was basically towing the line of that religion I was in. But when I kind of walked away from that, which I know is going to really tick off a lot of your Christian folks, when I kind of walked away from that and was kind of doing my own thing and really wasn't thinking about it, but I was in a very emotional, hyper state of being irritated by something, and then like a flash of light, something hit into my brain that says, "Oh," and it wasn't. And the conflict wasn't coming from what hit in my brain had nothing to do with the emotional. Why I was in an emotional state. If that makes any sense.
Sure. Do you think because you were in that heightened emotional state, you were more likely to grab on to any answer that may have worked in that moment?
It's very possible. The only thing is, it was just something out in left field. Let's say you were, let's say you were mad with the guy in McDonald's because he got your order wrong, and you just, then all of a sudden says, "Hey, this thing, that, you had this." And I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm giving it an example. You had that argument with your friend a year ago, and you need to get that straight. It was something along those lines. So
sure. I
was mad about, say, the person mad about McDonald's, but something else came in that was unrelated. And I said, "Oh my God, you're right. I should."
Sure.
I hope that makes.
If I had this exact same experience, Kenneth. Like I mean, obviously, we're different people, right? You're in Virginia, I'm in a different state, that type of stuff. But like, if I had that exact same experience, but ultimately attribute it to Shiva or Zeus, how would you and I be able to distinguish between both of our claims here? What could we do utilizing that method to kind of come to an answer together? You know, because if you're right, I want to be there with you, man. I want to know that. I want to have my mind changed like that, you know? And so what could we do together in that instance to make some progress there?
I don't think we can, you know, in that sense, because that's what happens is, God, no, I'm on my lecture. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. Keep going.
I just think it's like, it's kind of like religion. Religion kind of gets in the way, because then we got to create a framework to be able to pass this experience on to someone else, and we come up with religions, and then somebody else have an experience over there, and they come up with another religion. You got Zeus on one side, and you got Jehovah on one side, or Yahweh.
They all kind of sound the same, don't they?
Yeah, it's kind of like the twain will never meet.
Right?
That was this. I think right, and I agree with you. I think there was this. I mean, it could be anecdotal. That there was this issue that they had this religious conference somewhere, right? And they had the monks and they had the priest. Well, the priests were constantly bickering and arguing about some point of doctrine or some crap like that. But the monks got along. The monks got along because they were leading an ascetic life. They weren't really focused on religion. They was focusing on the experience. And even though one was Buddhist and one was Catholic, hey, we connect.
Sure.
It's confusing, but that's what happened.
Can I say a few things? First of all, I want to say I really congratulate you that you are so open to alternative explanations of whatever your experience is. Like, you're so, like, every time somebody says, like, could it be this? You're like, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's an option. Like, the fact that you are so open to that, to consider that you're so skeptical, that's really valuable. So hold on to that. That's really good. With regards to the experiences that you're having, it seems to me that these are positive experiences that you want to hold on to, that you consider valuable, right? Do you think that? Yeah. And when somebody calls the source of these experiences God, or talks about spirituality and mysticism, sometimes I get this impression that they think that whatever is the cause of these positive experiences is coming from an independent, larger, powerful entity, whether it's the universe or something, a God entity or whatever that is causing that, right? Wouldn't it, if these are not coming from that source and they're coming from you yourself, do you think it would take anything away from how great these experiences are? Like, do you think it would reduce the value of these experiences that you're having if you find that you're responsible for it, not a powerful entity independent from you, outside of you? Do you think it will enhance the experience, keep it the same, or reduce the how positive these experiences are?
Great question.
That's a good question. That's a great question, actually. And I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, on one hand, I say, yeah, you know, if this is generated by me, hey, look, I got the answer, right? On the other hand, and maybe this is just a carryover from when I was a traditional Christian person that wanted this God-like figure out there that's looking over me and saying, hey, I got your back. So I can't really answer that question right now, but I can see your point. I really can, because it is possible that this could be self-generated. But I do kind of like that idea that there's some entity out there that is making meaning to this. I can't prove it that exists. Okay,
I get why.
I'm not going to follow that. All down
I get why that's comfortable. No, don't worry at all, Kenneth. What you just said was awesome. I totally understand why somebody looks at the world that you've laid out, right? The understandings that you have, and then the opposite side of that, which is like, hey, that stuff isn't there. And I get why somebody would look at that first, understanding and be like, oh my gosh, that seems so much cooler and better and all that stuff, Here's the way I often think about it, okay? There's a bunch of us all sitting around at an ice cream shop, and each one of us has these incredible banana split sundaes right in front of us. We got all kinds of stuff just thrown in there. It is so interesting. There's all kinds of dynamics that are happening right here in front of us. And somebody walks up to me and points to my ice cream sundae. And they say, yours is missing sprinkles. Mine has sprinkles. And I look at their sundae, and it looks exactly the same to me. And they go, no, but try it, taste it, it's better. And it tastes exactly the same to me. I don't think we need those sprinkles, man. I think the world is just freaking awesome as it is.
Right.
So, hey, man, don't be worried if there's no sprinkles on your sundae, because you know what? There isn't on anybody else's either, it seems. So.
Well, I mean, there's a way to add some sprinkles to that.
Well,
I think, like, let me tell you how, because I get the idea of how. I mean, I don't know. I get the sense of anxiety if we're just by ourselves and nobody is there to like just help us out. If things like it seems very lonely. Like I get it, right? If the universe is just indifferent to whatever the hell happens to us, right? But this God entity, if it's helping you from outside, the extent at which it could help you, it seems to provide you these positive framing of and these feelings that it's giving you. Like that seems to be the way it can help you. Right, that's the extent that is available, right? And if you are the cause of that, right, then even if there's no God to take care of Kenneth, we have Kenneth to take care of Kenneth, right? Because Kenneth is doing that, right? So, I mean, you are being taken care of, right? Maybe not by but by you, and that I think is a source of comfort, because it's also it gives you a lot of self-confidence that I can do this, that even if I'm alone, right, I got my own back. Like it's empowering to feel like to be able to rely on yourself to take care of you, and it adds something. So with that God mindset, you have the feeling of somebody's taking care of you. But if you feel like, you know what, I take care of me, then it comes with that sense of comfort plus a sense of pride. Then you don't need a God to give you a sense of significance, because I am giving myself a sense of significance. So I feel like that vacuum of feeling lonely can, if you love yourself enough, you never feel alone, because you have you. Do you know what I mean? So before we go out looking for a God to take care of us, and even before we go and look at other people to love us and take care of us, if you could see, like, imagine, I know the sense of spirituality that you're referring to, and I don't want you to throw it away, but imagine how much more powerful that would be if you realize you are this God. I am this God.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah, that's actually very powerful, and that is something I will consider. Now I know you get other callers in, but can I just make this one statement, and this can go off of a lot of these Bible thumping people, that something they should think about. Is that okay?
Yeah, wrap it up for us, Kenneth.
Yeah.
All right. So for those who's a Bible thumper, I wish you would consider the Bible like a Rorschach test, the ink blot. Whatever some people look at the ink blot and see a butterfly. Some people look at the ink box and see a bat. A lot of times when people look at the Bible and say, this is in the Bible, if you believe that it's okay to sell your children into slavery to pay off your debt, that says more about you than it does the Bible. And I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great place to leave it, Kenneth. And thank you so much for giving us a call. We really appreciate your chat, man. And just like Armin said, you being, humble and honest about stuff, that is so, so important in these conversations.
Yeah.
Across the board, I think. So, hey, Kenneth, we are here all the freaking time. And when we're not here, we're hanging out in Discord and all these other wonderful places. So just come hang out with us, man. We want to hear where your journey is. And yeah, man, we want to hear from you.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Kenneth. You were so fun to talk to. So thank you for calling.